Hi everybody, my name is Richard Malach. I'll be your moderator today from the Rela8 Group. About a week and a half ago, we had this really great roundtable between KeyData and SailPoint, where they were the thought leaders, and we had representatives from all over the major industries. That includes banking, government, energy, insurance, construction, and law. The event focused on identity security as the new security perimeter to safeguard our critical infrastructure and covered topics related to IAM, including zero trust, SaaS, remote work, and managing users, both internal and external. This is going to be a great conversation we're going to have today between Rosa from KeyData and James from SailPoint. That partnership we're bringing together from the service provider and the solution provider, how they work together to really deliver on what the security landscape really needs, and that is securing the perimeter using identity. So I just want to go over to Rosa, if I may. Rosa, would you like to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Okay, thank you, Richard. I'm Rosa Caputo. I'm CEO and founder of KeyData Associates. My background is basically pretty much in the security space most of my career. So I was CISO and head of security at Ontario Hydro, and following that, Bank of Montreal, where I also had the opportunity to lead operations risk management for the bank worldwide and business continuity planning. So when I started KeyData Associates back in 2005, it was straight out of the gate focused on identity and access management. And we've been focused in that area for the last 16 years. That's about it from my background.
That's a long time, Rosa. You've probably got so much experience, which is why when you have so much experience, it makes such a great partnership. So James, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and SailPoint.
Certainly. I certainly don't have the line card that Rosa has, and it's wonderful to be on stage here with her virtually today. My name is James Toomey. I'm a country manager here at SailPoint. I've been with SailPoint coming up on 7 years, and I've been in this cyberspace for probably the better part of 20 years across my career. Very excited about SailPoint, where we are today, where we've come from, and where we're going in the future with our innovation and acquisition strategies that we have today. Going back to when I first started with SailPoint, my first partner discussion was with a lady by the name of Rosa Caputo. I was told that I needed to meet with KeyData because they were our integration partner of choice. And I think, you know, if you fast forward 7 years, Rosa and I have cultivated quite a relationship. And I've seen her business flourish from where they were to way back when to being one of our key implementation partners today, and our go-to partner in Canada. Extremely excited to be working with KeyData. They've certainly got a long list of very successful customers. And they keep up to speed with everything SailPoint. And if you know SailPoint, we provide governance, whether it be identity security for the cloud, whether it be for the data, or whether it be for the individuals. The one thing that I've seen resonate in the past 2 years, and more so since our new world of COVID, we've really seen customers not just doing identity programs. It's always part of something bigger. It's always part of a digitization or a zero trust, as you'd mentioned, Richard. Something that is really underpinning the organization as they make changes to address their ever-changing business requirements. So very excited to be here. KeyData, one of our top partners, Admiral partner in Canada, which I'm extremely excited about. So everything's been earned here in Canada, and just happy to be on stage with the three of you today.
Do you know something? I bet our audience would really love to know some of those key programs you guys have worked on together. Something that's really shown that you've really fermented that great partnership you guys have. Who'd like to start? James?
So I might steal the stage a little bit.
All right.
I think when, look, we have a couple of different flavors of customers that we deal with. It's customers that look at their existing technology investments that they've made today, and maybe those investments no longer support their future business initiatives. We also have customers that come to us and say, I need governance, I need identity governance, and I need an identity foundation moving forward. We're not really sure where to start. We certainly have a lot of programs here at SailPoint that can help kind of get things rolling. But typically this is where I'll go to Rosa and Rosa's team and say, Rosa, I'd really like you to engage with our customer, our joint customer, and let's really understand what their challenges are that they're trying to address, because there's two different types of challenges. There's the business challenges or the business requirements, and then there's also the technical requirements that really kind of stand up what a foundational program is going to look like. And that's where we engage KeyData to come in and kind of help out with kind of understanding where are you today and where do you want to go tomorrow. Rosa, maybe if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, so we work really well together with SailPoint because they have the best technology for identity and access management in the market. It works really well and it solves our clients' issues. And that's one of the reasons why we've been standing behind SailPoint. So what we work really well together because the technology is exactly where we need it to be. In terms of its features and functionality, solving the client's issues. And we make it come to life by applying the processes and by applying the controls that the clients need in order to meet their business objectives and in order to reduce risk. So it's basically the application of a world-leading technology to solve our clients' needs and making that come to life for them.
Oh, well, thanks, Rosa. You know, we had such a great round table and there were so many interesting talking points that were brought up. One of them, which certainly the guests around the table found very interesting, was they really wanted to know from each other what their biggest challenges were, because when you're sort of sitting in a box with your own thoughts, without, especially in these COVID times, without being able to go out and actually mingle with your peers, it's very difficult to know the right direction. So from your perspective, what do people tell you is their biggest identity challenge? Rosa, would you like to?
Sure. So our clients tell us that keeping track of the access that people have as they move around within the organization has been a challenge for them. Addressing those segregation of duty principles, especially with those critical applications. And other challenges we hear about are meeting the regulatory requirements. So whether it's Sarbanes-Oxley, NERC CIP, and privacy, to be able to do that for all users within the organization, and to be able to do it in such a way that it's not onerous on them to keep track of this access and to validate users' rights and privileges, and at a preventive level to ensure that when employees start with the organization, that they're given the right access that they need to do their job, but always maintaining principles of least privilege. That's really important in a zero trust model. And I think that the SailPoint product allows us to do that by configuring the solutions and adding the controls, the preventive detective controls within those lifecycle management processes to mitigate those risks in the environment, and also to be able to apply segregation of duty principles when granting access and when people move around within the organization. Another thing we hear a lot of is, to be able to validate the access in such a way that they have one solid view of each person within the organization and all access rights and privileges that that person has, and to be able to validate that access and identify what that access is without taking a month or so to do that. So that is one of the solutions that we get asked to implement within our client environments. And it certainly has been a lot of pain points around the manual processes that clients would otherwise have to do to grant access, to make sure that the access rights and privileges are accurate over the life cycle of the user within the organization. So yeah, those are just some examples of what we hear are pain points.
And how do you translate those, James?
I think Rosa hit on a lot of the kind of the key points there. You know, what makes identity governance important? It's kind of comprised of four different things from my perspective. First of all, Rosa spoke about it: regulatory compliance, whether it be GDPR, SOX. She mentioned NERC-CIPs as well. It's also risk management, so the policy enforcement and the risk reduction targets that your business is going to have. And what are some of the business changes and what are some of the challenges? So who should have access, and when, more importantly, when should they have access? And SailPoint provides that kind of unmatched visibility and intelligence while automating and accelerating that process and management of the identities, the entitlements, and all the systems that are attributed to it. And then the last thing that we hear quite often is faster, streamline, better, right? Do more with less. So that we comprise that, and we kind of put that into what we classify as service delivery. And at the end of the day, we want to protect the business with, you know, assets that are scaling, and just ensure compliance and certainty across that identity security cloud enterprise.
You know something, James? One of the things we hear all the time is, you know, enterprises must walk the fine line between enterprise control and granting access permissions to individuals. The result is that identity becomes a new security perimeter. Not only identity can both enable organizations to secure resources while giving the end users the convenience and ease of use they seek. So identity is not just the new cybersecurity perimeter, it's actually now the very core. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's imperative that everybody keeps an eye on that ball, right? There are so many different components that make up your business and make up the technology embedded in your business. So you think about all the different systems. We call them adjacent technologies or adjacent technology vendors, for example. They may be, you know, you may have a ticketing system, or you may have a privileged environment. You may have an ERP that you need to integrate into, and all of that's got to tie back into the governance of what you're trying to do inside the business. You also will have, you know, access controls. You'll have self-service applications. You'll have a lot of cloud applications. We've seen a tremendous growth in cloud applications. It was already started pre-COVID, but COVID certainly enhanced a lot of that as well. Yeah. And so a lot of organizations are now saying, you know, rather than looking at on-prem and data centers, how can we put something into a cloud-friendly environment, or how can we go cloud first? So we hear the term cloud first quite often. And a lot of the organizations that we deal with want to have a complete integrated model where we are not only the center or the foundational experience, but we are also taking into effect, you know, what are people doing for access? What are people doing for privileged, for ticketing systems, for ERPs, and what other cloud systems are they looking at? We've seen a tremendous uptick in Azure, GCP, as well as AWS in Canada, whereas a lot of our organizations are saying, we may not be able to put our identities into a cloud, but we certainly want to get rid of that cloud, or we want to get rid of that on-prem environment. So we're starting to see a lot more of that. And we're really that epicenter, right? We're really kind of that center point. And if people want to start bootstrapping in all those adjacent technologies, I think that's the right approach.
Well,
do you agree with that, Rosa?
Yes, I do agree very much with that. I mean, I think that regulatory compliance is a big issue with most clients, and you know, being able to apply those controls within the end-to-end processes and automating and removing that human element of risk to automate those processes and and ensure that compliance is enforced from the get-go, as opposed to being an afterthought. Being able to add those preventive controls in order to meet compliance and also to mitigate risk is really important in every organization.
So Rosa, it's really interesting you say that. So based on that, do you feel that the challenge is a technical one, or is it really all about the people?
Yeah, so it's about the people and the risks and the processes. The technology is really there to automate everything, to remove that human element, and it does a great job of doing that. But you know, people are human, and we make mistakes. Processes are not always perfect. They're not always enforceable when done manually, but through the tool. You can automate them to a point where whenever the process is executed, you know that it's always going to be executed in the same fashion, just as it's been designed and implemented to do.
So you'd say it's about the tools and the controls, but sometimes people, they just have to get their work done. And sometimes when tech is so complicated and restrictive, people go off and try and circumvent or bypass the whole thing, like trying to save stuff to Dropbox or personal email. I mean, how do you guys tackle that?
Well, one of the things that we can do within the system is to ensure that before a request is processed, that it meets certain criteria, and the request has to come in a certain way. So a telephone call or an email doesn't do it. The request has to begin in an automated fashion, either in your HR system or you know, it could be through a person going to a device and entering a request, an access request. But then after the access request is entered into the system, it follows a certain process that it's designed to follow. So the phone call isn't part of that process, and the email isn't part of that process. It has to be entered in a certain way and meet certain criteria in order for the request to be accepted, and then it has to be approved in order for it to be fulfilled. So all of the criteria is designed within the SailPoint solution to meet the control requirements and to meet consistency. We know that consistent, repeatable processes reduce risk. And so that's what we configure within the SailPoint solution to achieve that goal.
Thanks, Rosa. James, do you have any other insights to add to that? I think Rosa's
I think she summed that one up. Absolutely. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, why is identity governance important? It's really just to provide kind of simple, secure access and ensuring it's the right access to support those people that are joining your organization, moving around in your organization, and at some point, the people that are terminated out of your organization. And we do our very best to keep that as simple as we possibly can.
You know, it's funny, James, I think you've almost segued onto our next talking point. You know, how do people deal with it? Do you find that that encouragement works best, or is it enforcement? How does SailPoint and KeyData, how can you help customers or prospects with this issue?
I think it's all about setting expectations of what the technology can do and embrace that technology, right? So don't try and flex it. Don't try and repeat old processes. So I talked earlier, Richard, about our two different flavors of customers. One is a customer that says, hey, we made these investments back 10 years ago. Now we're modernizing or we're digitizing or we're doing something different. We're putting in a new foundation that's going to support our business. I think today, a big part of Rosa and I's challenge is setting those expectations of what the technology can and what it can't do. What it does from an identity perspective, what it does from a data perspective or from a cloud perspective, and support those models, making sure that whether you're a joiner, mover, or a leaver inside the organization, you have a full understanding of what the breadth and capabilities of that product can do. I do find that, you know, one of the things that customers try to do is they try to repeat processes from a solution that they bought 10 years ago. And the first thing we need to do is make it very clear to them that don't try and repeat the old process. That's fundamental problem number one when implementing a new solution. And I think the secondary piece is the organization needs to be ready and willing to adapt to the change and understand and leverage that new technology. And this is where KeyData is very, very sound, is when they've got a new customer coming in, they've done the implementation, they're starting to do that knowledge transfer and that handoff for self-sufficiency at the organizational level. I think that's where they're very strong, is kind of walking the customer through that. And if you look at our measurement on success, our success is really about the customer being self-sufficient and the partner kind of doing that handoff in time, right? So I think those are kind of some of the contributing factors.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there, James, because one of the first things we look at is defining a process that mitigates risk, that improves efficiency within the organization and applies all the controls that the organization needs to have in place. So defining, working with the clients hand in glove to define those improved target state processes is key. And it's amazing how much support we get for the new target state. Before we begin to even put hands on the keyboard, we're working with the client to understand their control environment, their level of risk aversion, and defining the governance around the identity management solution. So once we understand the governance that needs to be put in place, from then on, configuring the solution to meet those requirements is how we help the client to meet their objectives. So many times we meet with a client and they tell us that they don't know what access rights and privileges these users have. They've been with the company for 10, 15, 20 years, and they've moved around, taken different roles, the individuals, and there is no one that knows what access rights are associated with that user, with that identity. And there could be segregation of duty violations, and nobody really knows until we put a lens through it, which is until we create that identity repository within SailPoint that gives the transparency needed to understand what access rights and privileges each and every person has within the company. It is impossible to do that manually. One would have to check every single system, every directory, and define who's there. And as soon as you do that, you're out of date, because there's no way to keep track of, well, who got added to that directory after you did the last check, right? Or who got added the next day after you validated or verified, identified who was there. But within the SailPoint system, that lens, that microscope is always there. So you know who's got what access and what access rights and privileges. And then you can begin to address any breaches, if you will, including people that have left the organization that are still defined within the system and still have access that is valid. You know, I had one client, this is an interesting story, but one client tell me that they left the organization and came back 2 years later, and their account was still active within the system.
Yeah, Rosa, you know what? I'll leave the company nameless, but I worked for a large software vendor that I actually received. I received emails about 6 months after I left the organization, which absolutely led me to the space that I'm in today. It's such an exciting. It's an exciting part of the business that just delivers a lot of value, right?
Exactly.
You know, so the guys, I've been consulting in this space for 25 years. The amount of times I've seen this problem over and over again. It's great that there's that people are going to finally do something about it. And you know what? This sort of brings us on to our final talking point, really. What's the ways you've seen or helped businesses address this?
So I'll take the first stab at this, if that's okay, Rosa. I think that, so, you know, as I go back to the beginning of our chat here today, you know, we engage Rosa and we engage KeyData and her team when we're looking to deliver business value, when we're looking to address challenges from the customer and helping us document those and ensure that we're delivering the appropriate value back to the customer. That's what makes sense for us. And the business value that we look at is really kind of, what are they doing? Are they trying to look at a zero trust type of a methodology? Are they trying to secure a digital transformation type of an approach? Every customer of ours is always looking to minimize risk. So what are those risks? And can we help understand what those risks are and get really a good documented path of what they're trying to do from a business and technical perspective? Our goals are really kind of improve the agility and the kind of acceleration of their programs. The one thing we haven't talked about is worker experience, making sure that everybody that is enabled in the system has that enhanced ability to navigate the system. So worker experience is extremely important to SailPoint. What are the operational costs? How can we help reduce some of that risk, or those operational costs and risks associated with it? And then also not only just look at the identity piece, but what do we need to worry about from a data privacy and compliance perspective? Because there's so many different pieces that really kind of capture everything governance. And, you know, years ago, it was just the identity. Now we have to worry about cloud and what have people put into the cloud environments. What has Shadow IT done? What investments have they made that the business is completely unaware of? What data is being passed through the systems, like you'd mentioned, Richard, Dropbox and Gmail, and what is public that needs to be addressed as well. So those are kind of some of the business drivers that we try to focus on, and it's really about kind of, in business today, you can't do business without technology, and you can't do technology without identity, right? So that's really our approach.
This has been a great fireside chat. It's been really, really interesting. And certainly, it's been a great addition to the roundtable we had a week and a half ago. It was absolutely fascinating discussion. If somebody wanted to know more, what would you say the next steps are for them?
Well, we have a lot of case studies at KeyData for the different industry sectors. We've served just about every industry sector that there is. And we have case studies for each and every one of those sectors. So whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in finance, whether you're in government, whether you're in higher ed, retail, we've got case studies for all of these, and they're available on our website at keydata.ca or info@keydata.ca to get any further information. We also have workshops, free workshops that we're giving away for any organization that would like to have a closer look at the health of their identity and access management environment and just need some pointers in the right direction. We'd be happy to provide the workshop to help them get started.
That's really brilliant. Thanks, Rosa. And James, any other final bits of advice for those listening?
I would echo Rosa. Just reach out. We've got many supportive programs. We have tandem programs that, you know, Rosa can do items and we can do items, whether it be a value assessment to understand what does today look like versus what does good look like and what does great look like. We have many successful organizations. When I joined SailPoint back 6.5 years ago, we were about 15 customers in Canada. We're just under 100 today, and many of those customers would be happy to speak. So a lot of white papers, a lot of case studies that we've done as well. And we would love to come and see you jointly with KeyData.
Brilliant. Thanks, James. Well, I think that's all we have time for at the moment. My name is Richard Malach, and this has been a fireside chat for the Rela8 Group with our partners, KeyData and SailPoint. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Thank you, Rosa. Thank you, James. It's been a real pleasure.
Much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.